The Biden administration recently announced that it would reverse policies that protected the conscious rights of religious hospitals. A university professor says doing so is a big mistake. In a commentary piece for the National Catholic Register, Professor Richard Garnett writes in part, quote, "The Sierra Club should not be required to support drilling for oil in a national park, and a Catholic hospital should not be expected, let alone required, to provide or participate in elective abortions, euthanasia, or sex reassignment procedures." And joining us now is Richard Garnett, professor of law at the University of Notre Dame. Professor Garnett, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Could you talk to us more about some of the efforts to force religious hospitals to violate their character, mission, or foundation?
Yeah, sure. These are troubling developments because, as you know, hospitals really began as religious ministries. And across the country, there are countless social service agencies and schools and hospitals and hospice care places that are animated by a religious mission. And one of the things that that mission means is that it's supposed to animate the entire way that they provide care and provide services. And what we're seeing now from several governments, not just the federal administration, is an effort to require these faith-based social service agencies, including Catholic ones, in the name of anti-discrimination law, to provide particular procedures or services that we regard as immoral. So again, a Catholic hospital being required to provide an abortion, as I suggested in that op-ed piece, is kind of like asking the Sierra Club to support damming a river. And the troubling thing is it's a misuse of the term discrimination, because I think as Americans, we're committed to the rule of law and we believe in equal protection of the laws. And so we tend to be worried about discrimination. But these hospitals and these social service agencies are not discriminating. Instead, they have core commitments that preclude them from participating in certain wrongful actions, such as an elective abortion. It's not discrimination, it's integrity.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Biden administration's attempts to reverse conscious protections. Can you talk about what's currently in place right now, the protections that are in place, and what, if anything, is being done to save or preserve them?
Sure. So there's actually been, for decades now, there had been something of a consensus that even if there was a legal right to abortion, that Catholic healthcare providers would not be required, and indeed the taxpayers would not be required, to participate in or support these procedures. But there's been a lot of pressure on that from various quarters, both at the state level and now from the Biden administration. And so what's being proposed in various of the administration's departments are interpretations of federal law that would interpret anti-discrimination law to require these hospitals to provide things like gender reassignment surgery or abortion, even though that violates their conscience rights. Now, again, there have been conscience protections in place for faith-based healthcare providers for a long time, but I think these are now more in play and indeed more at risk. You asked what's being done to protect them. Well, I mean, I think we can count on religious liberty advocates and litigators to hold the administration and to hold state governments to account on this front. And we'll have to hope that the courts will come to the conclusion that any effort to make a Catholic hospital perform an abortion is a violation of religious freedom protections.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of time left, maybe about a minute or so. But I'm curious, do you think this is an issue that goes beyond hospitals? And do you think religious schools or colleges could be affected by this?
Yeah, for sure. This cuts across the board. So imagine a university that has a policy of housing men and women in separate dormitories. Under current interpretations that are being proposed, these universities would have to allow permit people to reside in the dorm of their choice in terms of their gender identity or their professed gender identity. You could imagine schools that refuse to cover abortion in their student insurance plans, being required to cover insurance in their insurance plans. So it's not just hospitals, it's any faith-based non-governmental agency is at risk if we misunderstand discrimination as including acting out on one's basic religious commitments.
Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. Richard Garnett, professor of law at the University of Notre Dame. Thank you again.
Thank you.